phone rang at 2:17 a.m. That part wasn't unusual. It was my job. Late night calls, troubleshooting strange problems for people who couldn't sleep. What was unusual, though, was the caller ID. Internal. No number. No extension. No name. Just that one single word. Stark white against the black screen of my work phone. I stared at it for a few seconds too long, my mind trying to place it. Had I seen this before? Was it a system update? A test call from management? The ringing persisted, a sharp, insistent pulse in the quiet of my apartment. Finally, I shook my head and answered. "Thank you for calling customer support," I said, my voice smooth and practiced, the standard greeting I'd recited thousands of times. On the other end, there was silence. But it wasn't dead air, not the empty void of a dropped call. This was something thicker, heavier. I could almost feel it pressing against my eardrum. I waited a moment, then I could hear it. A low, soft breathing, in and out, unnervingly close to the microphone. "Hello?" I asked, my professional tone wavering just a little. The breathing stopped abruptly. And then a voice, barely a whisper, spoke my name. Not my work name, the one I used on these calls, but my real one. I went completely still, every muscle in my body tensing. A cold prickle ran up my spine. No one from work knew my real name. It was company policy. I kept my personal and professional lives strictly separate. "How can I help you tonight?" I said, forcing the words out, trying to keep my voice steady, professional. There was another long pause, stretching the silence until it was almost unbearable. "Am I still eligible?" the voice asked. Each word sounded deliberate, practiced, as if he had been rehearsing them over and over. "Eligible for what, sir?" I asked, my fingers flying across my keyboard, trying to pull up an account. Nothing. My screen was blank. No account history, no phone number, no data at all. Just an empty customer profile. "I'll need your information to access your account," I said, falling back on my script. A soft, dry laugh echoed through the line. "I don't have any," the voice replied, a hint of something strange in his tone, something that wasn't quite amusement. "Not anymore." Suddenly a loud burst of static surged through the line, making my headset pop painfully in my ear. I winced, pulling it away for a second before putting it back on. "Sir, can you explain the problem you're experiencing?" I asked, trying to regain control of the call, of the situation. "I can't feel my hands," he said. His voice was flat, matter of fact. He wasn't scared. He was just stating a fact, like telling me the sky was blue. My training kicked in, a protocol for potential medical emergencies. "Are you somewhere safe?" I asked, my voice now laced with genuine concern. "Yes," he said. "I think so." A knot of unease tightened in my stomach. "Where are you right now, sir? Can you describe your surroundings?" I asked. "I'm where you told me to wait." My blood ran cold. My chest tightened, making it hard to breathe. "I've never spoken to you before," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "This is our first call." He ignored me. "That's not what the note says." I heard the distinct, faint rustle of paper over the line. "What note?" I asked, leaning forward, my heart hammering against my ribs. He began to read slowly, his voice monotone. "If you're hearing this, call the number below. They'll know what to do." A deep, creeping cold spread from my chest into my arms and legs. That phrase. I knew that phrase. It was part of a recovery script, something we were supposed to read to customers who had lost all their data, but it was only for internal documentation. It was never meant to be seen by a customer, let alone written on a note. "That's not possible," I stammered. "I called," he continued, his voice unwavering. "It rang for a long time, then you answered." Just then, the lights in my apartment flickered once, twice, then steadied. My eyes darted around the room, searching for a source, a reason. "I think you might be confused, sir," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "Perhaps you have the wrong number." He didn't seem to hear me. "Can you hear the water?" he asked suddenly. I listened intently. There was nothing but the low hum of my computer and the sound of my own frantic heartbeat. "I don't hear anything," I told him. "That's good," he replied, and for the first time there was a hint of relief in his voice. "That means you're not here yet." And then I heard it. A faint, distant, dripping sound, coming not from my headset, but from somewhere in my apartment. My gaze snapped back to my monitor. My cursor was moving on its own. It slid across the screen, clicked open a new window, a blank text document, and then it started typing. A transcript, every word we were saying, appearing on the screen in real time, letter by letter. My own words, his words, everything. A wave of pure terror washed over me. "Who else is with you?" I asked, my voice trembling. "They don't like when I talk," he whispered, his voice now laced with fear. A sharp metallic scraping sound screeched through the headset, loud and jarring. And then other voices started to bleed through the line. Faint overlapping whispers, dozens of them, murmuring indistinctly. I ripped my headset off my head and threw it onto the desk. But the whispers didn't stop. They were coming from my computer speakers now, growing louder, filling the room. I lunged for the mute button on my keyboard, jamming it down. I unplugged the speakers. Nothing stopped. The whispering was everywhere. "They're listening," the man's voice said, now coming from my phone on speaker mode. Behind the glass, my monitor, which had been displaying the terrifying transcript, suddenly went black. Total darkness. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then it flickered back on. It wasn't my desktop anymore. It was a video feed, a live video feed of a small, bare concrete room. In the center of the room was a desk, and on the desk a phone. A phone that looked exactly like mine. It was ringing. On the floor, a man was curled up in a fetal position, completely still, and sitting in the chair at the desk. The chair was mine, the one I was sitting in right now. I could see the worn leather, the scratch on the armrest. It was my chair. My blood turned to ice. "I don't think I was supposed to reach you," the voice on the phone said, sounding distant and resigned. "I think they made a mistake." Heavy, slow footsteps echoed through the video feed, approaching the door of the concrete room. "They're opening the door," he whispered. At that exact moment, my phone rang again. Not the call I was on, but a new call coming in. The caller ID was the same. Internal. My screen flashed with a new notification, bold red letters blinking ominously. Call transfer initiated.
I desperately needed the money, so when the night security guard position at the old city library opened up, Primera jumped at Italiana. The pay was surprisingly good, almost too good, and nobody else seemed to want the job. Now I know why. My first night on the job started out like any other. Quiet, eerily quiet. I did my initial patrol, checked all the doors and windows, and settled in at the main desk with a thermos of coffee and a cheap paperback. The library is a beautiful old building, all dark wood and high ceilings, with endless rows of books stretching into the shadows. Around midnight, that's when things started to get weird. It began with a sound, a soft, rhythmic thumping coming from the history section on the second floor. I figured it was just the old building settling, the pipes groaning under the strain of age, but the sound was too regular, too deliberate. Thump, thump, thump. Like a slow, heavy heartbeat. I grabbed my flashlight, my own heart starting to beat a little faster, and headed upstairs. As I climbed the grand central staircase, the air grew colder. The thumping stopped the moment my foot hit the top step. I called out, "Hello, anyone there?" Only silence answered. I swept my flashlight beam across the towering shelves. Dust motes danced in the light. But otherwise, everything was still. I shook my head, telling myself I was just jumpy, letting the creepy old building get to me. I walked the entire floor, peering down each aisle. Nothing. No one. I figured it must have been my imagination. Back at my desk, I tried to lose myself in my book, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind outside made me jump. Then I heard it again. This time, it wasn't a thump, it was a whisper. A faint, raspy sound, like dry leaves skittering across pavement. It seemed to come from all around me, a chorus of hushed voices just at the edge of hearing. I couldn't make out any words, just the sibilant, chilling sound of it. I stood up, scanning the cavernous main hall. The shadows seemed to twist and writhe, playing tricks on my eyes. I shouted again, my voice trembling this time. This isn't funny. Show yourself. The whispering stopped instantly. Silence descended once more, heavier and more oppressive than before. I decided to check the security monitors. Maybe I'd see a prankster, some kids who'd managed to sneak in before closing. I cycled through the cameras, each one showing an empty, silent part of the library. The children's section, the reference room, the archives in the basement hall, deserted. I was about to turn away when I saw it. On the camera for the second floor history section, the same place I'd heard the thumping, a book was on the floor. It was a large, leather-bound volume, lying open in the middle of the aisle. I knew for a fact it wasn't there before. I'd walked that exact aisle myself. My blood ran cold. Someone, or something, was in the library with me. I had to go back up. I had to know what was going on. My hand was shaking as I picked up the heavy flashlight again. Every step up the staircase felt like a mile. The cold was more intense now, a biting chill that seeped into my bones. When I reached the second floor, I saw the book, just as it had appeared on the monitor. I approached it cautiously, my flashlight beam fixed on its pages. It was an old census record, filled with names and dates in elegant, spidery handwriting. As my light moved across the page, I saw that many of the entries were from over a century ago. Then one name caught my eye, a name written in a different, more frantic script, crammed into the margin. The ink was faded, but I could just make it out. Eleonora. Beneath the name was a single, chilling word. Hush. Suddenly, the whispering started again, louder this time, swirling around me. Hush, 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 hush. It was coming from the shelves, from the darkness that pressed in on all sides. Panic seized me. I dropped the flashlight, and it clattered on the wooden floor, the beam spinning wildly. In the fractured, strobing light, I saw them. Figures. Tall, slender silhouettes standing between the bookshelves, their forms indistinct, like smudges of ink. They weren't moving, just standing there, watching me. I couldn't see their faces, but I could feel their collective gaze, ancient and cold. The whispering rose in volume, a cacophony of voices all repeating that one word. Hush! It was a command. A warning. I scrambled for my flashlight, my fingers fumbling in the dark. I grabbed it and pointed it directly at one of the figures. For a split second, I saw a face, pale, gaunt, with dark, empty sockets where eyes should have been, and a mouth stretched wide in a silent scream. I screamed myself, a raw, terrified sound that was swallowed by the whispering. I turned and ran. I didn't look back. I flew down the stairs, not caring if I tripped. My only thought to get out, to escape the suffocating presence of that place. I burst through the main doors and into the cool night air, gasping for breath, my heart hammering against my ribs like it wanted to break free. I ran all the way to my car and didn't stop driving until the sun came up. I never went back. I called the next morning and quit, making up some excuse about a family emergency. They didn't sound surprised. I think they knew. I think everyone who ever worked that shift knew. The library keeps its secrets, and its guardians don't like to be disturbed. They just want silence. They want you to be quiet. Forever. Sometimes, late at night, when my own house is quiet, I can still hear it, that faint, raspy whisper on the edge of hearing. Hush. I looked into the history of the library afterward. Turns out, over 100 years ago, a head librarian named Eleonora vanished without a trace while working late one night. She was known for being incredibly strict about silence in her library. They never found her. Some say she just left town, but others say she never left the library at all, that she's still there, wandering the stacks.
The job seemed perfect, babysitting for the Hendersons, a lovely couple in a big, beautiful house at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac. Their son, Leo, was a sweet, quiet 7-year-old. The pay was great, and they had every streaming service imaginable. What could go wrong? Mrs. Hendesard walked me through the routine as she put on her coat. Leo's bedtime is 8 sharp. He's already brushed his teeth. He might ask for a glass of water. That's fine. Standard stuff. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Mr. Henderson was already waiting by the door, jingling his car keys. Just one more thing, Mrs. Henderson said, her voice dropping a little. It's our only real rule. Once Leo is in his room for the night, please do not open his door for any reason. I nodded. No problem. If he needs me, he can call out, right? Oh, he won't, she said quickly. He sleeps like a log. So, just to be clear, after 8, his door stays shut until we get home. Got it? Got it? I repeated, feeling a little strange. It seemed overly strict for a 7-year-old. But hey, their house, their rules. They said their goodbyes, and then I was alone with Leo. The next hour was a breeze. We built a pretty epic fortress out of couch cushions, and then watched a cartoon about a talking dog. Leo was a great kid, easygoing and funny. At 5:28, I told him it was time for bed. He didn't protest, just gave me a small smile and headed up the stairs. I followed him up to his room, tucked him in, and said goodnight. Good night, he whispered, his eyes already looking heavy. I clicked his door shut behind me, hearing the soft latch engage. The clock downstairs read 8:01 p.m. Rule in effect, I went downstairs, made myself a cup of tea, and settled onto the ridiculously comfortable sofa. I put on a movie, and the next couple of hours drifted by peacefully. The house was quiet, almost unnaturally so. The only sounds were the movie and the gentle hum of the refrigerator. Around 10:30 I heard it, a soft thump from upstairs. I paused the movie, listening. Silence, probably just the house settling. I told myself, old houses make noises. But this house wasn't old. It was a brand new construction. A few minutes later, another sound, a scraping noise, like something being dragged across a wooden floor. It was definitely coming from upstairs, from the direction of Leo's room. My heart started to beat a little faster. My job was to keep him safe. What if he'd fallen out of bed? What if he was hurt? The rule echoed in my mind. Asterisk. Do not open his door for any reason. Asterisk. But that was a parent's rule. A safety rule, surely, was more important. What if he was choking? Or having a nightmare and had hurt himself? The responsibility was crushing. My imagination ran wild with terrible scenarios. I got up and crept to the bottom of the stairs, straining my ears. The scraping started again, louder this time. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. It was rhythmic, deliberate. It was not the sound of a child in distress. It was something else. My hand was sweating on the banister. This was stupid. I was the adult. I was in charge. I had to check on him. The rule was probably just to make sure he didn't try to sneak out of bed to play video games. Yes, that had to be it. I forced my feet to move, one step at a time, up the carpeted stairs. Each step felt like 100 pounds. The scraping stopped as I reached the top landing. Now, there was only a tense, heavy silence. Leo's door was right in front of me, a plain white door, looking completely normal, but it didn't feel normal. A cold draft seemed to be coming from underneath it. I told myself I was being ridiculous, spooked by an old house and a weird rule. I took a deep breath, reached out, and my fingers closed around the cold, brass doorknob. Asterisk, do not open his door. Asterisk, Mrs. Henderson's voice was a whisper in my head. Asterisk, he could be hurt. Asterisk! My own panic screamed back. I chose panic. I turned the knob. The door swung open silently into the pitch-black room. I fumbled for the light switch on the wall just inside the doorway. My fingers found the plastic, and I flipped it up. Nothing happened. The light was out. The air that flowed out of the room was icy cold, carrying a strange, metallic, coppery smell. Leo? I whispered into the darkness. Are you okay? No answer. I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I turned on the flashlight, its bright beam cutting through the oppressive dark. I swept the light across the room. I saw his little blue race car bed. The sheets and blankets were thrown into a heap on the floor, but the bed itself was empty. My heart hammered against my ribs. Where was he? I swung the beam towards the closet, closed, towards the window. It was shut, the curtains drawn. Then my light fell on the far corner of the room, and I saw it. It wasn't Leo. It was tall and impossibly thin, its limbs bent at angles that weren't natural. It was hunched over, its back to me. It wore what looked like Leo's striped pajamas, but they were stretched tight over its long, gaunt frame. Its skin was pale gray in my phone's light. Long, spindly fingers were scratching at the floorboards, pulling them up one by one. That was the scraping sound. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't scream. My entire body was frozen in sheer, primal terror. What was that thing? As if it sensed my light, it stopped its scratching. Its head slowly began to turn. It wasn't a fluid motion. It was jerky, like a broken doll, a series of clicks echoing in the silent room. I saw its face. It was long and narrow, with no nose and no lips, just a gaping black hole of a mouth. But the eyes, it had Leo's eyes. His big, brown, innocent eyes, set in that monstrous, inhuman face. They stared right at me, and they were filled with an ancient, chilling intelligence. The thing unfolded itself, rising to its full, terrifying height. It was so tall, its head almost brushed the ceiling. It took a step towards me, its long, jointed legs moving with that same unnatural, jerky motion. That broke my paralysis. A scream finally tore from my throat. I didn't wait. I slammed the door shut, not even bothering to see if it would latch. I scrambled, fell, and slid down the stairs, landing in a heap at the bottom. I didn't care about the pain. I just knew I had to get out. I fumbled with the locks on the front door, my shaking hands making it impossible. Behind me, I heard a loud crack from upstairs. The sound of a door frame splintering. It was coming. Finally, the deadbolt turned. I threw the door open and sprinted out into the cold night air, not stopping until I was across the street, hiding behind a neighbor's car. I looked back at the house. The light was on in Leo's room. I saw a silhouette in the window. It wasn't the tall, horrible creature. It was the small shape of a little boy. Leo. He was just standing there, looking out the window, right at me. Then my phone rang. The caller ID said Henderson home. My blood ran cold. I let it ring, my hand shaking too much to answer. It stopped, then immediately started ringing again. This time, I answered, holding the phone to my ear with a trembling hand. "Hello?" I whispered. It was Mrs. Henderson's voice, but it was strained, panicked. "Did you open the door?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Please tell me you did not open the door." I couldn't form words. A choked sob escaped my lips. There was a pause on the other end, and then a deep, tired sigh. "The rule wasn't for him," she said, her voice filled with a despair so profound it chilled me to the bone. "It was for you." We locked the door to keep it in. "But when someone opens it from the outside, it can get out." I stared at the window where Leo stood. "But..." "Leo's in there. I see him." Her voice dropped to a horrifying whisper. "No, that's not Leo. Leo is with us. We take him with us every time we leave. Now tell me, what did you let out of my house?" I ended the call and just stared at the window. The small figure of the boy lifted a hand and gave a slow, deliberate wave. And as I watched, frozen in terror, I saw his shadow on the wall behind him. It wasn't the shadow of a little boy. It was long and thin and monstrous. I had broken the one rule, and now it was free. Thanks for watching. If stories like this give you chills, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And let me know in the comments. The new job was supposed to be a fresh start. An overnight security gig at the old, sprawling Blackwood Manor, now converted into a private museum. The pay was surprisingly good, probably because no one else wanted the shift. Too quiet? The hiring manager said with a shrug. Gives people the creeps. I laughed it off. I preferred quiet. Little did I know, quiet wasn't the problem. The problem was the sounds that broke the quiet. My first week was blissfully uneventful. I'd do my rounds, check the perimeter, then settle into the main security office with a book and a flask of coffee. The office was in the original part of the manor, a wood-paneled room with a large bay window overlooking the overgrown gardens. My only company was a bank of grainy black and white monitors, cycling through empty hallways and silent exhibit rooms. The museum specialized in Victorian-era artifacts and mannequins, in period clothing, antique furniture, and a particularly unnerving collection of porcelain dolls. The strange stuff started on the second Tuesday. It was around 2 a.m., the deadest hour of the night. I was watching the monitors when I saw it, a flicker of movement in the doll room. I leaned closer to the screen. One of the dolls, a girl in a blue sailor dress, was different. I swore its head was tilted slightly to the left, but I remembered it looking straight ahead. I shook my head, blaming sleep deprivation. I got up, stretched, and decided to do an early patrol just to clear my head. As I walked the halls, the silence felt heavier than usual. The air was cold, colder than it should have been. When I reached the doll room, I pushed the heavy oak door open and flicked on my flashlight. The beam danced across rows of glass eyes, all staring blankly. I found the sailor doll. Its head was perfectly straight. I let out a sigh of relief. Just my mind playing tricks. I turned to leave, and that's when I heard it, a faint, giggling sound. Like a little girl. It was coming from behind me, inside the room. I spun around, my heart hammering against my ribs. The room was empty. Just me and the dolls. The giggling stopped. I backed out slowly, pulling the door shut, my hand trembling. Back in the security office, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I kept my eyes glued to the monitors, my coffee forgotten. The next night, it happened again. This time, it was a rocking chair in the nursery exhibit. On camera, I watched it begin to rock, slowly at first, then with more force, as if someone was sitting in it. There was no draft, no one else in the building. I didn't go to investigate that time. I just sat there, frozen, watching the empty chair rock back and forth for nearly 10 minutes before it abruptly stopped. I started digging into the history of Blackwood Manor. The local library had archives, old newspapers, Turns out, the Blackwood family had a tragic past. Their youngest daughter, Eleanor, died in the house in 1892. She was just 8 years old. Pneumonia, the record said. She loved dolls, and her favorite room was the nursery. A chill snaked down my spine. I found a faded photograph of her. She was wearing a blue sailor dress. The temperature would drop suddenly, my breath misting in the air. Whispers seemed to echo from the walls, too faint to make out the words, but the intent felt playful, almost like a game. As I passed the grand ballroom, I heard faint music, a waltz from a bygone era. I peered through the keyhole. The massive room was dark and empty, but the music was undeniable, swirling around me like a ghost. I felt a light tug on my sleeve. I jumped back, shining my flashlight down. Nothing, just an empty hallway, but the feeling of tiny fingers brushing against my arm lingered. I fumbled for it, my hands shaking. Then I heard the giggling again, right behind my chair. It wasn't faint this time. It was loud and clear, as if a child was standing right over my shoulder. A cold breath tickled my ear, and a whisper, as clear as day, said, "Wanna play?" I screamed. I didn't even grab my stuff. I scrambled out of the chair, bolted out of the office, and ran through the pitch-black manor, stumbling and crashing into things. He didn't sound surprised. He probably knew. Everyone probably knew. It's the silence of holding your breath, waiting for the next game to start. Some jobs just aren't worth the paycheck.